We are now live.
Okay, thank you, Taylor. Okay, so I'd like to call to order the January 26, 2021 ad hoc committee meeting of the CTIC/RILO sub-grant application having been submitted by Chief Rittenauer. I'd like to read into the record those that are in attendance. On the committee, myself, Councilman Jack Knapp is chairman, Councilwoman Colleen Stanley, and Councilman Fred Visconti are in attendance. We also have, as required or requested, Corporation Counsel Les Pinter and Chief of Police Chief Rittenauer. We have also ex officio members Dwayne Perkins, Councilman Dwayne Perkins, Councilman Michael Henry, what is your title these days, Paul? Councilman Paul Rottello, and Councilman Elmer Palma, and I think that's everybody. Yep. And then we also have attending, John Swan. Okay. All right. So that's who's in attendance. For the record, I'll read in the petition that was, or the correspondence that was sent to us from Chief Rittenauer, addressed to the mayor on September 11th, 2020. Mayor, as you know, the police department was given the opportunity to assign an officer to the Connecticut Intelligence Center CTIC Regional Intelligence Liaison Officer Program, aka RILO. This special assignment opportunity was posted in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement between the city and the police union, as well as the Pahahim-Rogers consent decree. The posting attracted 12 applicants. We narrowed the field to 4, and the CTIC staff made its final selection. The selection officer began training with CTIC on September 8th, 2020. Although this was not a deciding factor in determining whether or not to take advantage of this opportunity, the state is prepared to at least partially reimburse us for a salary of an officer assigned to the program. Currently, the reimbursement is up to $60,000 per fiscal year. The reimbursement is coming from one of the state's federal grants, which means we will have to apply for a sub-grant award. I respectfully request permission to complete and submit the attached grant application and approval for execution and ratification of the required memorandum of agreement. Please contact me if you have any questions. Sincerely, Chief Rittenauer, Chief of Police. I also have attached, which I'm not going to read, the proposed resolution as well as the memorandum of agreement between the state and the city. So that being said, Mr. Pinter, I'll turn it to you for an overview, if you would, from the city on this application, and then we'll go to Chief Rittenauer.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hope everybody can hear me, and it's good to see you all. Nice to see everybody someday in person as well. As the chairman read the cover letter, it summarizes what is being presented to the council for approval. And essentially, it's a two-part request. Number one part request is the assignment of the selected police officer, which has occurred. And in that regard, you'll be asked for ratification of that action that was taken in accordance with the proposal. Secondly is the approval of an agreement to receive grant funding tied to that program so that at least some of the salary component of the officer's assignment can be reimbursed to the city. The arrangement here is a very interesting and good collaborative agreement with the city of Danbury and the state itself through its sub-agencies. And it's in accordance with statute. The statute promotes this kind of combination and coordination. In fact, it promotes it, I won't say heavily, but it promotes it in the interests of improving, data collection, intelligence, activity, and other components that both parties deem very important and critical to the functions of law enforcement. So the memorandum of agreement that you have, and I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for not reading that into the record because we'd be here for some time. But the resolution itself is worth just scoping out real quick because it does establish the essential components of what's going on here, which is the use of an officer for purposes of this Connecticut Fusion Center. The officer from Danbury is the Regional Intelligence Liaison Officer for purposes of the program, and it's a 2-year assignment from September 2020 through September of 2022. And so that officer will be working at the Middletown location, and the chief can elaborate in more detail on those components, but that 2-year commitment will serve the functions of the memorandum of understanding that we have. So in essence, again, according to statute, this collaborative arrangement is presented to you for approval. It's recommended. It's a very beneficial program, and if you adopt the resolution, you will ratify the assignment of the officer, and you will approve the application and receipt of the grant funds. So I guess that's probably as concise a summary as I can provide. The MOU or MOA is comprised of about 7 or 8 pages, and it sets forth the detailed components of the arrangement, including the salary, including the use of a vehicle, and the expenses involved. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll return it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pinter. Okay, and then if I could ask Chief Ridenour at this time just to bring us up to speed on the program itself, where we're at, and then any other light you'd like to shed on the subject.
Thank you, Councilman, and good evening, everyone. Just very quickly, I mean, I think Attorney Pinter really summarized everything accurately. It's an assignment to the Intelligence Center, and what it gives us is a seat at the table to not only gather intelligence, but to train our officers on how to analyze that intelligence for the safety of our community. And given some of the the critical infrastructure that we have here in the city of Danbury and the region, I just think it's a good program, and it also gives our officers an opportunity to broaden their horizons in terms of career development. The salary reimbursement, it's probably adds up to about 75 to 80% of that officer's salary. So through the sub grant. So I think that's just an added benefit that we're getting reimbursement on the salary. And just very quickly, we had some concerns over this past weekend, some information that we were able to give to the Intelligence Center, and they were able to properly analyze it and to realize that there was no threat to our community. So we didn't have to do any extra staffing or take any additional action. So it really is a benefit to the community. It's a benefit to the department. It's a benefit to the officers, and any type of assignments like this help to improve morale within the department.
Okay, and Chief, if I could, so the officer that you have currently staffed doing this is up and running and fully trained, and
yes,
is already moving forward?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Questions from either of the two assigned counsel? Colleen or Fred, do you have any questions?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Fred. Colleen, your mute is on, Colleen.
To the chief, one of the questions I have after reading everything, going through this a couple of times, we have an officer now that is working a totally different situation than he was before. Is this officer now a part of the full crew that we have, 130, 140, or where does this officer stand now?
Okay, I don't know if it's your connection or mine. It says it's unstable, but can you hear me?
I got
yes.
You.
Okay, all right. No, the officer is part of our current staffing, yes. So but they're assigned to the Intelligence Center.
So he still is on the working list as a Danbury police officer?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, all right. If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Please do.
Chief, when you say that the officer will be going out into the community and so on, what exactly will he be doing? Will he be giving speeches or whatever?
No. What I was saying is that they working out of the Intelligence Center, any type of information or threats to our community, they would be able to gather that information and to analyze that information, and then let us know whether or not we need to do any community outreach, or whether or not or if it's not a credible threat, so that we don't have to take any actions.
And follow up, please.
Sure.
If are you saying, or maybe I shouldn't answer, but I will. Are you saying that we are having threats, so on and so on, in the city of Danbury now, that we need this type of I don't want to put you on the.
No, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I mean, obviously, with the advent of social media and, just, a lot of other ways to do communications these days, it's a matter of analyzing anything that comes across to determine whether or not it's credible and whether or not we should be concerned. And having this intelligence center and having a seat at the table within the intelligence center gives us that added benefit to be able to analyze that information, to determine whether or not it's credible and whether or not we need to take any additional actions here. So, but overall, no. The answer to your question is no. We don't have any serious threats at this time.
Okay. Are there other cities that are doing this? I suppose there are, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Fred. Colleen, any questions?
No, Fred asked the question that I was going to ask, but he did say, were there any other cities or towns that were going to be involved in this? I would assume that every city and town would have somebody involved, or no?
Okay. Our officer is not only
Regionally?
covers Danbury but also the region, which is most of Fairfield County.
Okay. And you mentioned that the officer would be able to help Danbury. Would that be in training them as well? Or no?
If needed, yes.
Okay. And I don't even know if you can answer this, but like, what kind of intelligence do they like receive? Is it
All kinds. I think the best way to say that
is it something internationally or nationally?
It's possible that it could be international at times. Yes. Yeah. I mean, nothing recent, but the Connecticut Intelligence Center. The Connecticut Intelligence Center also works with intelligence centers from other states, as well as the Fed. So if there's anything of major concern that would come through the federal channels, they would relay that information to the Connecticut Intelligence Center so that we could take appropriate actions.
So something that was out of the ordinary that was popping up, that would be talked about and discussed, and then if it may be concerned our region, Fairfield County, it would be related to our fellow
Yes.
officers, and train them
Exactly.
and to make
Yes.
everyone safer. Sounds good
Yes.
to me. It's great.
Okay. Thank you, Colleen, Councilwoman Stanley. Is there any of the ex officio members that have any questions at this time? Councilman Rotello.
Thank you, Chairman Knapp.
My
Okay,
pleasure,
through
sir.
the chair to the chief. We got a several page MOA. I think it's an MOA. And on 15.3, the bottom, it sort of lays out the responsibilities that the city has and the remuneration that the state or the pass through from the state, from the federal government to the state to us will entail. 15.3.11 says the city of Danbury shall provide a full-time qualified law enforcement officer as a regional intelligence liaison officer with the CTIC Fusion Center, Connecticut Intelligence Center. Location to be his or her newly assigned duty station for a period of 2 years. Okay, so that lays out that part of it. So and I'm gonna go through my questions linearly, and then somebody can answer them instead of stopping and starting and stopping and starting. So we're giving the state a full-time officer, And to be helpful, they actually describe what full-time is. They even put down as hours from 0800 to 1530. That's a full day. And that's a full day working not for the city of Danbury. I mean, maybe indirectly for the city of Danbury, Fairfield County, but for the state. And in return for that, they're going to give us $5,000 a year. So I don't want to take issue with the comment.
60.
5,000
a month.
Yeah, thank you. 60,000 a year, which is maybe a little bit more than half of what we're actually going to pay him for work that he's not doing for us, doing this for the state. Now, again, you're making the case that he'll be doing work for us indirectly, but directly he will be working not for us, but for the state. So the issue then, to go back to the chief's comments about how we can count him as a full-time city employee when he's not working for us, seems to violate the MOA. The MOA goes on to say that if he's not working full-time for us, we have to give the money back. So it brings up a couple of points. The first point is, who's he working for? Then the state, this MOA makes it really clear he is not working for us, he's working for the state. And, you know, I suppose that's fine if they want to pay for him, but they're not paying for him. They're paying for him partially, even though he's working full time. The second thing is that the chief had mentioned something about Middletown or some intelligence center. And I'm confused as to whether he's going to be in Danbury, working in Danbury, or working in Middletown. And if he's working in Danbury, where is he getting the intelligence? I mean, you know, without getting into spy versus spy, I'm not sure how the process is going to work for a state, essentially, as the English would say, somebody who is seconded to the state will be collecting intelligence in Danbury. So I need to kind of get walked through that. There's also a thing about further training, going on to training, I don't know what you want to call them, training conventions, whatever, with the state will pay for, but they're not going to pay for his daily expenses, what they call per diem. So we have to pay for that too. And, you know, look, I don't have a problem with the state picking up most of the tab for training, but it seems to me that we're essentially underwriting a state employee in the city of Danbury coming out of the police department when we are already short of officers. And we're, you know, I mean, you can say that he's working for us and he should be counted, but the MOA is really clear. If he's working for us, he's not going to get this money. And if he's getting this money, he's not working for us. So if somebody could walk me through that, I'm genuinely confused by how much this is ultimately going to cost us, what this officer is ultimately going to do, and essentially what is in it for us that's worth this money, the 40 or 50,000, to make up for the loss and essentially the loss of control of this officer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chief, if you'd like to respond to that.
I'll let Les chime in as well, but I just think overall, I mean, policing's not local. It's not always local. And it's for our officer, what they're doing is that they're developing those relationships and they're developing the partnerships to gather information to ensure that our community is safe. Now, yes, they are at the intelligence center, which, like I said, a variety of information comes in to that center for not only Danbury, but the region, you know, and anything that's in close proximity to Danbury. Could be something across the line in Putnam County that we need to be aware of so that we can prepare accordingly. And so what they're doing is they're deciphering and then disseminating that information to wherever it needs to go. And, you know, the benefit of them being in the center and the benefit of the training that they're getting is just invaluable. I mean, I don't think you can put an entire dollar amount on it, and it's appreciative that most of that salary is coming back to us. And there's also the ability to train our personnel here on certain things to look for. And anytime that we have something that needs to be analyzed or whatever, we have the ability to send it up there, and knowing that we have someone who has that seat at the table who is going to make it a priority.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if I may, that brings up one of the questions that I had. I was under the assumption that he would be stationed here in Danbury, but Chief, you're telling me he's actually going to be in Middletown full time?
They're going to be at the center most of the time, but they can work from here. We do have space for them here as well. They can work from here, but most of the time they are in Middletown, and they are given a car, so there's no additional transportation cost for us. And doing so, the state gives them a car. That's part of the assignment.
That makes a difference for me, having an officer stationed in Middletown, working at that center essentially full time, bringing information back to Danbury, as opposed to having somebody essentially controlled by the state in Danbury in the police station here all day long, not really working for Danbury and not really working for the state. So what you're saying is we're sending him to Middletown for 2 years, and he's going to be bringing information back as needed to us in Danbury.
Yes.
Okay, that puts a completely different spin on it for me. Thanks a lot for that clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence. Appreciate it.
I have a
Thank
question.
you. And just one thing for the record, Councilman Levy has joined us, so I'll put that in.
Jack, I
Councilman
have a
Stanley.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just to clarify what Paul was just asking, so the $60,000 per year for the 40-hour work week, is there a balance that will be going to the officer that will be paid from Danbury? Or is that basically what the officer normally makes?
Don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I believe that salary is around 70. So there's still a little bit that the city covers, but the majority of it is covered by the would be covered by the sub-grant if we're allowed to keep the assignment as well as apply for the sub-grant.
So we're not, so, and also the car is being supplied by the state, or we're
Correct.
supplying?
No,
Oh,
the
okay.
car, the
Oh,
car.
I read it wrong. Okay.
Yeah, the car is being supplied by the state.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
Any
ready.
Fred, you look like your mouth was moving, but you weren't asking a question. I couldn't hear you.
My wife said the same thing earlier today. I don't know.
She could be so lucky as to hit that mute button. Go ahead, Councilman Visconti.
I was glad to hear the chief. I was also under the impression that the officer would be stationed in Danbury. Now, when you hear that this officer will be stationed in Middletown, where he's going to get a lot of information that will be sent back to us. You know, a lot of people think, well, what happened on January 6th, that's not going to happen in Connecticut or Danbury or wherever. It can happen any place in this country at any given time. We know for a fact that there are several survivalist type of people running around the state. They're here. Are they going to try and do something? We don't know. But the information that's going to come back from this officer to our police department for the simple reason to protect the city and the people that live here, I think that's great. And it really changed my mind. I was going to ask a few more questions, but as far as I'm concerned right now, I don't have a problem with this.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for the chief or for Corporation Counsel? Councilman Perkins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Chief Rittenauer.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the numeration of the officer, but there is, at least in my opinion, a discrepancy between the $5,000 a month versus a total full-blown salary with benefits, this, that, and the other. So I guess the city would have to pick that up.
Yes.
Yes. Paul, Councilmember Tully answered or actually asked a lot of the questions that I had, but what I was also wondering is, of the data that's collected, is there a portion of that information that will not be shared with Danbury, or it pretty much gets all shared with us?
Well, we can ask for anything, but certainly anything that's specific to Danbury would be. When you say shared with us, what do you mean, with the council or with the department?
With your department.
Oh, yes.
So pretty much whatever comes through, this officer will convey it to you or your team based on the level of importance that he believes, or just generally giving you a blanket basket of information?
Both. You
Okay.
know, both. Yes.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Dwayne.
So once this grant has expired after the 2-year period, it's basically starting over, or would we try to make a place for him within the system, and then Danbury would have to pay the total?
I mean, at that point, this is all new to us. It was an opportunity that was presented to us that we thought would be beneficial. We would reevaluate after the 2 years to see how beneficial the arrangement has been to the department. And there's no guarantee that officer would stay for an additional period. It could be another assignment that we recall that officer and give someone else an opportunity to go in.
That's what I was going to ask you. Would it be some type of rotation system just for additional training? And the possibility does exist. So
Yes.
Thanks. That pretty much clarifies any information that I was looking for. Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dwayne. Okay, anybody else have anything at this time? Mr.
Chairman,
Henry.
for the chief. Hi, Chief.
Sure.
Hi, Councilman, and congratulations.
Thank you. Out of the 12 initial candidates, what separated this officer from all those candidates and then down to the final 4?
Okay, what we did was just evaluated all of the applications. They were asked to put in why they would be a good fit for the assignment. And quite frankly, all of them were good. And when all of them are good, what I narrowed it down to basically was by seniority. And so I took the 4 candidates, and because it's an assignment, with this center, we felt it was good to give the director of the center, the four candidates, allow them to interview them all and to make their pick, because who was going to fit in well with the team.
Any prior specialized training for the officer?
No, it was not required. No, it wasn't required. But I thought all of the 4 candidates that it came down to, have represented the department well. They all have quite a bit of they all had some seniority within the department, and I just thought it was best to give the center a pool of candidates to make sure that they had the right fit for their team.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, any further questions? For the record, Councilman Chianese has joined us also, so please note that in the minutes. Okay, if I have no further discussion, yes. Kelly, well, let me just I'll close the discussion and entertain a motion at this time.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to receive the communication submitted by Police Chief Riddenhauer, and to recommend adoption of the resolution, including the ratification of actions authorizing the special assignment of a Danbury police officer as a Regional Intelligence Liaison Officer, RILO, and the application for an acceptance of a Homeland Security grant for such purposes.
Thank you. So motion's been made by Councilwoman Stanley. Do I hear a second? Freddie's on mute and making a second.
Second the motion.
There it is. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Colleen or Fred, any further discussion on your behalf? If none,
No.
Hearing none, I'll try your minds. All those in favor of the 3 of us, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimously approved, and therefore no opposition. Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn by Councilman Visconti, seconded by Councilwoman Stanley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Chief, thank you always for your dedication.